bolted.
And make bolts. So joint nice and strong. Holes on the side there. So two parts together. Gonna break.
Can you hear me, Steve?
I can. Loud and clear.
There we go. Well, good morning.
Good morning.
Let me
So
check.
you decided to do a beans, huh? I was just coming out of your mess.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like, I didn't even think about doing the beans, and then, yeah, then you know, Ali mentioned it, and I'm like, fuck it, let's do it.
Well, I can do it for a little bit. I can't do it for like 2 or 3 hours, but I can find it for a while.
Yeah, I might not do long beans anyway either. Like, you know, I'll just be one of our spontaneous ones.
Yeah, that's cool. No, I'm down for that.
So we'll switch that, switch that. So we've got a few people. So we'll go 1, 2, and we are live. So what have you been doing, Steve, anyway?
Layout-wise or life-wise? Layout-wise, not much. Life-wise, a lot of projects around the house. Catching up on it.
Yeah. No, I get that. So, Steve.
Yeah, those are really cool.
Yeah. Where in? Do you reckon they're like 1960s, 70s one?
It's blurry, but yeah, I think so. I would guess, yeah, early '60s, mid '60s, something like that. Yeah, that's it, perfect. I'm gonna eventually put it in a yard office if I ever get my yard working done.
Yeah. Well, I'll put it in with the rest of that stuff that I'm sending over.
Man, you're too cool. You are way too cool.
No, like I wasn't expecting. I've had these for like months. Yeah, I had them for months, and then yeah, I opened the packet and I saw the logo, and I'm like, oh, I recognise that logo.
Yeah, those are actually really cool. They'll fit in just right.
Yeah, so actually look at this. Finally got my new station in.
Sure did. I like it.
So yeah, I'm in the middle of populating the layout and cleaning up. I've got a couple more kits coming for detail parts, like an oil filler stand kind of thing to filling up oil locomotives, and I'll have another oil tank. I'm going to build a very basic diesel refueling facility near the tank, or over here near the points. Made a few billboards, which I've got one over here. Actually, what do you reckon of this, Steve? What do you think of that, Steve?
Flip my phone. I can't tell what it is.
Well, there used to be this whole corner used to be a station. There used to be a car park and a full train station right here. So,
Okay. Hang on a second.
so I ripped all that out, made a road which goes into town, and then that's the driveway into the, if you think about it, there'll be a car park there, the main station building, the main station building will be roughly here, and then you got platforms. You know what I mean? So like the station's kind of like off scene.
Right. That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, and as I've just been popular, like I've been putting cars on. Had a couple of emergency vehicles which I repainted into cop cars with a black and white texture. There you go, everyone can look at my billboard for 15-cent hot dogs.
Hey, send Claude a message and see if he wants to get on for a little while. I don't know if he's working or not today.
No, he did say he was working, so he might jump on a bit later when he gets home. I was gonna say, Steve, you should jump on eBay.
And
just trying to think who the sender was. Just go on eBay, look up billboards. And you'll find these. Yes, honey?
that's cool.
Alex's room. So you just cut them out. Comes with instructions on either making a basic billboard stand for it, or you can kit bash a full billboard stand for it.
Huh, interesting.
Like the billboard that's over there, that's how I did that one. That's all out of balsa wood. And then the other two were laser cut kits, which I put together quite easily.
Yeah, are we live or not?
Yeah, we're live.
Oh, we are.
Yeah, like let's see who's on there. We got Marty, got Human City, Ally's on there on the chat.
Yeah. We got Marty M. Boom. Hey, Marty. Good morning. See what I started by just wanting to come out here and mess around?
But it's good. That's actually a really good camera angle.
You like that?
Oh yeah.
I finally got all my heavyweights working. I think I had
Oh, what did you do to them?
12 of them. There was one switch they didn't like because it's so long.
Oh, I know what you've been talking about. Yeah. Like I've got a set of micro trainer heavyweights, and they hate going through this S bend I made with some switches.
Well, there's one switch coming off the hill that they just did not like. Well, half of them didn't like. The other half would work, and I finally got the switch tweaked to the point where the truck will get through it.
Yeah.
It looks pretty cool, though.
Give us 2 seconds.
Oh.
And I'm back.
And
Andreas literally just woke up. And we have Wilmer in here.
good morning, Wilmer.
Yeah, good morning. And yeah, no, I didn't wake the baby. Andreas is having some bad teething pains. Seems to be his new thing, getting woken up by his teeth. There's one thing I didn't think about when I put these stations in. You want to know what that is, Steve?
What would that be?
I didn't think how difficult it would be to actually clean between the platforms.
That could be a challenge.
It's gotten to the point where I've got a Pico rubber that is fairly worn down, so I have to cut the end so it's kind of flat on a 45. And then I have to use like the end of it and just clean each track individually. I also had to pull apart my Kato FEF-3 number 844. And to top it off, I've also got a manual switch throw. So yeah. There it is. Chip glue in the way. And another bit of paint in the way. Now I'm going to plan that. And I've misplaced a ruler. I've misplaced 2 rulers. Steve, I've taken a page out of your book.
Oh, that's not good.
I'm misplacing things.
Welcome to my world.
Actually, I know where it'll be. I've got to wake up my other son now.
I'll be right back. I'm gonna go make a cup of coffee and hopefully the trains won't crash. Whoops. As soon as I said that, amazing how that works. Amazing how that works.
Yeah, I've misplaced that ruler completely. Or is it in this pocket? No, it's not in that pocket. No, in that pocket. Damn it! I hate it when you need something and you lose it. You don't have a ruler, make one. How'd you go with those tricks, Ow. How'd you go with those tricks, Locos? Steve? Oh, Felix disappeared. Right, what is on chat? Good to hear, Marty. Glad you took my opinion on them, because like as I said, you know, they're really, I reckon, and as I said, in my opinion, they're really good for beginners, and they're just really easy to work with, and you know, as I said, they're like an oil and water based paint in one kind of deal. So you can get almost different textures depending on what you want to do. Ah, Steve went for coffee. Yes, Ali, that's the word I was after, advice. If you can't tell, guys, I'm running low on gas. Actually, I'll make myself a coffee. I've just been having a very bland day.
Now wait. Something stopped.
Did you lose half your train, Steve?
Lost part of it, yes. Just in the nick of time, I just got back. I have one couple that's not holding.
Oh, Steve. I've got to find the website again. Hey Steve, when I redid my roads a couple months ago, did I ever show you that?
It's blurry. I can't tell what it is. I can't even read it.
Road markings, 1948.
Oh,
So it's the standardization of road markings in the USA as of 1948. And it comes in a range of colors, pavement markings, diagrams on how to actually draw up the markings on the roads and lanes and parks, on hills, on curves, highways, mergers, railroad crossing, intersections.
now how many people would actually know that though?
Sorry?
How many people would actually know whether it's right or wrong though? I wouldn't know. I wouldn't have the clue.
Yeah, but it actually gives you all the dimensions as well. So, so as long as you've got a scaled ruler, you know, you can at least you can do everything to the correct scale. So, like where my railroad crossings are, I printed out a stencil on a computer of the railroad crossing symbol, and then I traced it onto the road, and then I painted it in with texture.
Okay.
From afar, they look really good, but when you come up close, the two letter R's either side of the X is kind of a bit iffy. But what are you going to do about it?
Nothing.
Also,
is Wilmer still on here?
I believe he is.
Hey,
I think
Wilmer,
he's just got us in the background.
That was funny because I was watching Not Bad. I was kind of, what the heck is that?
No, there's a baby monitor.
Oh, it's like something's gonna blow up. No, Wilmer, I was in the kitchen doing something. I was kind of listening and watching and looking back and forth, and then I heard my name mentioned, and it was like, wait a minute, whoa, what did he say? So I went in and I backed it up and watched it again and realized what you were saying about this guy that's got that live steam Shea one switch and 20 or 30 feet of track. I just couldn't believe that. That is just the craziest thing I think I've ever seen. That is a lot of work to move one log back and forth. Just that. Thanks for letting me know about that because I watched that. I watched the full thing on it. It's like that's.
Hang on. So there's a guy. He owns a 2-truck Shea on 30-foot of track.
Yeah, what he's got is he's running a. The locomotive would be inch and a half scale, but since it's narrow gauge, he's running it on 5-inch track, which makes it. I don't know what scale that would be, but I've never heard of anybody doing that. In the inch and a half hobby, if you want to run 2.5-inch gauge or scale, narrow gauge, you would run it on the 1.5-inch scale track, which is 7.5 inches. and that equipment is really big. So he's running narrow gauge, but man, if I had that locomotive, man, I'd want to be out on a track someplace running it and going back and forth in my backyard. I hope he's got a club.
Actually, that's like a guy I saw a video on. He's got his railroad runs right around his house. So it's just a single loop of track. But what he's done is, so he's got a gate either side of his house. So he's got the gate that comes out near the laundry, and then another gate that comes out near the like it's the access to the backyard for trailers and that. And it's got the rail lines. They finish up there, but what he does is in the storage shed where the loco sits, he's pretty much has a flat car that he rolls the train up to the end of the track, and then he lays out the last section out through his front yard and across the driveway.
Oh, I've seen that. Yeah, I've seen that. That's pretty cool, actually.
Yeah, that is mint.
Yeah, that's really nice. I've got a buddy down in California that's got a 1-inch scale railroad in his backyard and front yard. He just completed the loop in his front yard, and for several years it's been in his backyard. It goes around his swimming pool and then up around his back fence, and it's got a reversing loop there. But once he completed the front yard, he's got a reversing loop in the front yard, or he can run a whole loop around his whole house. So yeah, it's kind of along the same lines. Yeah, that 1-inch scale, it's pretty small to ride. I went down to his house and I ran it, and it's getting to the point where you wouldn't want to get any smaller for any ride-on trains. But yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, well, look at I know a lot of people in England, they run on 1-inch scale.
Mm-hmm.
Or something like that. And yeah, they're tiny, but you look at the way all the railroads are set up, they're all pretty much on, they're all raised off the ground.
Oh, yeah. Actually, if you get into the 3/4-inch scale and 1/2-inch, yeah. 1/2-inch is getting, I don't even think you can ride on that even on a raised setup, but 3/4-inch scale, yeah, you've got to have a raised track. Looks almost like a monorail.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, and the riding cars, actually, it's kind of straddled. It looks almost like a saddle on a horse. Your legs are hanging over the side of the raised track structure. But yeah, that's getting pretty small.
Yeah. Well, I can see the advantage of it because obviously over in England, people who do get into that, they don't have a lot of space to store anything.
Mm-hmm.
Because obviously they're in a townhouse with a small backyard with a small shed.
Right. Well, and see, that's the advantage of the 1-inch scale, because it is much easier to manage moving it, storing it. I mean, heck, you can pick up one of the cars, pretty easily. The locomotives, they're a little heavier, but you can manage those too. You can pick those up off the ground and stick them in the back of your truck. And
yeah, worst case scenario, it's a 2-man job.
Yeah, but you get bigger than that into the 1.5-inch scale, and that whole dimension changes, and you need a lot more room to operate it, which means and storage and moving. I mean, the stuff I've got, when I've got the riding car and the locomotive in the back of my truck, it weighs out at about 1,500 pounds, and that gets a little heavy. But the disadvantage of the smaller scale, like the 1-inch scale, is there aren't too many clubs that have tracks to run. 1.5-inch scale is pretty common. And it's not hard to find a club track to run one, but try to find one that's got, 5-inch gauge track. That's it's a little more difficult.
Yeah, I know what you
There
mean.
is one. There's one down in the Bay Area, the Golden Gate Live Steamers, that they have actually quite a bit of. It's actually not 5 inches; it's 4 3/4, I think. I got to talking. I just had a wreck. 4 3/4, which it's still 1-inch scale, but the gauge of the track is a little narrower, and they have both 1.5 and 1 inch together, and it's all dual gauge track. Very much like what Claude's doing. And I sent a link to him so he could see one, because it looks really cool. It's all the dual gauge crossings and switches, and it's actually pretty cool.
Yeah. Actually, one of my mates sent me a video yesterday. Someone has replicated, those miniature railroads that pretty much run on narrow gauge track, and they downsize the locomotive where it's a miniature of an actual loco, but you can still kind of sit in the cab.
Yeah, that's 16-inch gauge, I believe.
Yeah. And then the carriages are just like similar design to what they used to use in Disney, in the Disney theme parks and that.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway, this guy has created a miniature of a miniature.
Miniature of a miniature. Now, what is a miniature of a miniature? Explain that.
Well, think about it. So, those railways that run on, narrow gauge track, they're already a miniature of an actual railroad, for tourist attraction.
Mm-hmm.
So all he's done is he's made a miniature of a miniature railway.
Okay.
So basically, it's if you, easiest way to explain it, it's HON3.
Uh-huh.
And what he does is he uses N-scale mechanisms from like Graham Farish, Flying Scotsmans and stuff like that, and he puts pretty much the 3D. He gets like a 3D printed boiler and cab and tender to go over the top of it, which is just kind of the proportion. It's a proportion correctly of the actual loco. I have to figure out what railway it's actually modelled off, so people can actually understand what I'm going on about.
Well, there's actually some 2-foot gauge railroads here in the States too.
I hate that. I hate it when I paint a road and I get a stone stuck in the paint.
How's everybody doing this morning?
I'm not doing too bad. Actually, the kettle just finished boiling. I better make myself a coffee.
Yeah, I was out here with Claude yesterday morning doing basically the same thing, and I really had so much other stuff I needed to be doing, but I was out here bullcrapping with him for an hour. Mostly I've been out here working out bugs out of track and rolling stock.
Oh, that's better. What were you saying, Steve?
Oh, I just hang out here. Mainly I've just been out here lately working bugs out of rolling stock and track because I got some stuff that doesn't want to run worth a crap, so I'm putting it away, getting stuff that's reliable or semi-reliable. Talk about railroading on a budget. Oh man.
Yeah, well, why do you think I buy simple projects like, you know, the billboards is basically just cardstock with printed on high quality printer paper. You know what I mean? And obviously styrene strips to construct, you know, my overhead gantry crane, balsa wood, and an old tank car to make an oil storage tank.
Uh-huh.
Like I figured out a really good way of making roads, and that was just to basically use oh, I have to figure out what it is in inches now. 1.5. Where's my laptop front there? You dingbat. So I just want to go here. 1.5 millimeter into inches. Zero 0.5. 0.05. So I use like 1/16 of an inch balsa wood.
That's pretty small.
Yeah. Well, no, like it's that thin, but you get like the long sheets. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
Lay it down where you want the road, and then you get pretty much wood. You know, like plaster wool filler.
Plasterboard filler, is that what you said?
Yeah, you know, like putty or whatever you want to call it.
Oh, okay.
You know, it's got 100 different names and whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and then all I did was I just, you know, I applied it on the balsa wood in a very thin layer, and it, you know, took maybe an hour to dry. Sanded it back, added another layer on top just to fill in any gaps that I, you know, made. Sanded it back again, cleaned it, painted it. Done.
Interesting.
Yeah. Because if you think about it, the balsa wood, you know, if you ever need to rip it up, balsa wood is, you know, fairly easy to rip up.
Actually, I like Wilmer's idea too about that super sticky double-sided carpenter's tape for laying stuff down. That was a really good idea.
I didn't think of that. Jeez.
Yeah, he's using it to put down his cork and his trap, and he said it works really good. It's like, dang, that's a good idea.
Usually, if I'm in a rush,
really good.
yeah.
You know,
Usually, if I'm in a rush, I'll lay down cork with C8 glue. Otherwise, I'll use PVA. Yeah, that's actually a really good idea.
Yeah, you know, it really, I mean, it holds it down secure enough that if you actually have to change something and move it around, it comes off. That's a great idea.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing.
Yeah.
If you think about when you're laying track and all that down, you know, you don't really need to do much to the cork to get the cork to lay down, because at the end of the day, once you put the track on and then ballast it, the track and ballast is going to hold the cork down.
Yeah, and see, all my stuff is pinned, just tacks. I never glued anything down. And then you put the ballast down, and yeah, it's not going anywhere.
Actually, searching through my collection of cars that I've got. Oh, I hate this camera.
What is that?
It's one of the cars I found in my collection of cars that I bought. I've got two of them. Oh, no, the camera's not going to do it justice. Put it this way, it's a very famous wagon on TV that everyone knows of and everyone loves.
The Brady Bunch wagon.
No, it used to be an ambulance.
Oh, the monkeys.
No.
No, that wasn't it. Heck, I don't know.
Ghostbusters.
Ghostbusters. Hey, I learned to drive on one of those.
Yeah, I've got two of them. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to paint them both white. See if I can figure out how to put the Ghostbuster logo onto them. I'll keep one for the layout, and the other one I'll decide what to do with later.
You can have a contest. Win the Ghostbuster wagon. Who are you going to call?
Do you want some cars for your junkyard?
Sure, I don't have any cars.
No, because I've got these. Where's another one? Now, I've got these cars here, right? They're just a cheap plastic, but they're oversized for N scale.
Mm-hmm.
So they're almost like Monopoly cars.
They look like it, too.
Well, if you put it next to an actual proper N scale car. There's an N scale car.
Oh. Yeah.
See, that there's meant to be a VW Beetle. And look at the size of that thing.
Yeah, that's quite a difference. Quite a difference.
Actually, if you want, I've got a couple of cars I can squash and cut up to make it look like they've been robbed for parts.
Yeah, once you hack them up, you'll never know. No one's going to know.
No, because have a look at these ones. Actually, you know what? Just pick up the camera, Shannon.
Just pick it up.
So those cars right there? Steve?
Oh, what?
So those cars right there?
Uh-huh.
You know the $10 Buckman cars you used to buy in packs? Like they're just the really cheap, nasty looking ones?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's just those.
Oh, interesting. Hey, what are those, that ABA, is that UP that you got there right next to your
My big boy, which is covered in grass at the moment.
So what are those?
Yeah, the ABA Union Pacifics.
Oh.
I've got another B unit, but I have to put a decoder in it.
Why UP, though? Jeez. Why does everybody like UP so much?
Well, when I first started model railroading, I just bought anything and everything I liked. So you know, I'll go through eBay and I go, "Ooh, I like the look of that. Ooh, I like the look of that. Ooh, that looks pretty. Ooh, that looks pretty." You know, I just did that all the time. And then after a while, when I started, you know, building layouts and trying to model what I wanted to model, I eventually got to a point where I go, right, as much as I love running anything and everything, if I want to build a layout that's kind of a bit prototypical and run prototypical equipment, I'm going to have to figure out what railroad I want to run. So what I essentially did was I separated all my locomotives in all the individual railroads. So I have Union Pacific, Southern Pacific, Norfolk and Southern, Nickel Plate Railroad, Santa Fe. You know, so I had them all lined up. And yeah, and then I looked at the collection and I'm like, okay, I've got a heap of Union Pacific, a heap of Southern Pacific, one or two Santa Fe's, one or two of this, one or two of that. Okay, I'll sell the 1 and 2s and I'll keep that. And then I started, you know, doing research in Union Pacific and Southern Pacific. Found out both railroads actually did merge at one point. So, you know, kind of worked with what I wanted to model. And yeah, and then, you know, that's when I started buying the passenger cars and more locos, rolling stock, and, you know, just trying to run the railroad a little bit prototypical. You know what I mean?
My problem, yeah, my problem is I'm just getting old.
Yeah, you're reliving the glory days.
Yeah, and you know, and everybody's into BNSF, and you know what? I personally have a problem with them, you know, and I don't like them for a couple of reasons, and again, I'm old because the BNSF is what, 24 years old now, something like that. You know, it's not like it just started. But they swallowed up the Santa Fe, and they took two good railroads, the BN and the Santa Fe, merged them into just a big mess.
Yeah, Burlington Northern.
I got buddies that are still running for BNSF that I used to work with, and they're retiring now. As a matter of fact, one of the guys, he's number 1 in the seniority roster right now on the Valley. I trained him in 1992, Steve Hammond, man. And I get regular reports of what the BNSF is doing right now and the UP, and it's horrible what the railroads are doing right now. It's just unbelievable. You ever heard of PSR, Precision Scheduled Railroading?
Oh, I've heard you mention it a few times, and
yeah, it's basically the railroads. The UP is really good at it. That's why I really don't like them. They are slashing positions right and left, and they're running 15,000-foot trains with two guys. You know, they're running 2 and 3 trains together because they can.
Basically, they're trying to cut employee costs down, but run longer trains.
Yeah.
Basically, what they do.
And it's gotten to the point where technology has advanced with the DPU technology to the point where the railroads are pushing train limits to a very unsafe level. 2 guys cannot handle a 15,000-foot train if it breaks in half. I mean, how is one guy going to walk 3 miles to the end of his train and back without keeping crossings blocked for hours and hours and hours?
Oh, yeah.
What's going to happen?
I remember watching a video where that happened. This guy was rail fanning. He was following, funny enough, it was a BNSF train. Mm-hmm. And I think it was like a 1.5 mile long train. So it wasn't actually a really long train, but it was still decent. You know, only had You know, I think it only had like 3 locos at the head end, and that was it. There was nothing at the tail end or in the midsection. And anyway, they were just, you know, he was following this train, and yeah, following along, and then all of a sudden you just hear this bang, and then you hear the brakes screech on, and you go, "What the hell's happened?" And as you're hearing all this, you're looking at the camera, and you can see the, you know, 2 freight cars are starting to separate as the front end is just still going under power, and the back end is just locking up because there's no air pressure keeping the brakes open.
Right.
And yeah, and what happened was a coupler broke out of the chassis.
Yeah.
So what does a coupler sit in? It's like what's it called, a coupler box or something?
Well, the coupler is you've got the I'm not sure exactly what you're talking about, but the drawbar that connects to the underframe of the car is, I mean, that thing's big, and then you got the knuckle on the end of that thing. And
well, basically, so basically where the coupler sits into the chassis of the freight car, the actual gooseneck of the coupler broke. So the knuckle was fine, and the chassis was fine, but the coupler broke in half.
Yeah.
From stress fracturing.
What happens? You know, the knuckle knuckle is designed the weak length of the whole freight string. It's designed to break. It'll break at 250,000 pounds of drawbar force. You can actually pull it past that, you know, just the stretching of it. But if you get a little bit of slack and then you jerk that out, that knuckle's going to break.
We'll just break clean in half.
15,000 feet of train, you're going to get slack action. It's going to happen. If you've got power on the middle, you got power in the head end, power on the rear, all on DPUs, you're going to get slack action, and they do break.
Yeah. Well, this one only had 3 units at the head end, so you know, so like I think they might have been coming on a downhill section. You know, so maybe, you know, the back end of the car slackened up, you know, kind of catapulted it forward, and then when the head end just pulled the slack back out, it just, you know, launched it. Or they could have even just been applying the brakes slowly, and the brakes latched on at the back end a bit harsher than the front end, and just. But yeah, it blocked up 2 railroad crossings, and the guy ended up driving up to the head end, picked up the engineer, turned around, drove all the way back to where the coupler broke, and he's on the phone to his superiors. He's like, can you send the crews out? We've got a snapped coupler here, and.
Well, you know, and see, that really is the problem with these long, massive trains that PSR is trying to do, and it's precision scheduled railroading, and it's just another word for the railroads trying to do way too much with not enough people. And even a train that's not stopped, let's say you've got a 10,000 foot train at 5 miles an hour, how long is that crossing going to be blocked? You know, and people are going to start dying. You know, there's going to be a time when you got a crossing blocked, when you got emergency services that are trying to put out a fire, they're on one side, or you've got somebody that's, you know, on their way to the hospital, they're stopped by a train, and it's going to be there for an hour. You know, people are going to die.
Actually, there's a video on that. What was it? I think it was like 4 or 5 police cars that were heading to a call out. So I guess.
Oh, the guy that got hit, and the train clears. You know, it's a double main line, and they go across, and he gets smacked by one going the other way. Yeah. I mean, it's you know, the railroads have always had the philosophy, and I dealt with them, so I know their mentality, but enough people have to die for something to change. There was an old conductor that told me right after I hired out, when, you know, he showed me the rule book, you know, and he said, "Hey kid, you see this? It's like, yeah. He said, this was written in blood. Every rule in this book is here because somebody died. You know, and they write a rule. Crossings were the same way. You know, that's why, you know, some crossings have, you know, lights. Some of them have lights and arms. Some of them have just a crossbuck, you know, and the reason why is there hasn't been enough people dying at that crossing to justify paying for arms on the gates. You know, so, you know, you got flashing lights, but you don't have arms. Well, that's because there hasn't been enough collisions to justify it.
Well, that's what happened here in Victoria. On the metropolitan lines we have here, the government put forward like a couple of $1 billion into the infrastructure to actually delete railroad crossings. You know, so what they've been doing is they've been doing overpasses and underpasses of the railroad.
Mm-hmm.
You know, whether overpassing or underpassing the railroad to basically delete the rail crossing so that there's no need for a railroad crossing.
Right, yeah.
You know, like the intersections are still there, and you know, but the only difference is now instead of a railroad crossing light, now you just got traffic lights.
Yeah, I mean, all that stuff costs money, and the railroad does not want to spend the money to put in an underpass or upgrade the crossing systems if they don't need to. You know, why would they put lights on a crossing that they can get away with crossbucks? Because there's not enough traffic. But if you had enough people getting hit by a train there, then yeah, they'll start doing it because the lawsuits are more expensive than just putting in the crossing, and that's just how it is.
Oh yeah,
I mean, it's all about money, and and
well,
now
it's like now. The other infrastructure project that they started doing is again with the Metropolitan Link, but now they're building a subway as such.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, because when you look at the train lines here in Melbourne, obviously you've got Melbourne as a central point, and everything kind of goes out like a spider web, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you know how in a spider web you got the webs that join each strand together, and it goes round in like a spiral.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what they're building. So they're building one which starts on the train line I'm closest to, and it goes pretty much across each branch line that branches out of the city, and they're going right round, and then they're having another train line coming off it, which goes straight to the airport. And supposedly it's going to be finished in 2022.
Right.
You know, so
well, technology is going to be it's double-edged sword. It's good and it's bad. This DPU stuff now, the technology is so rock solid and dependable because of the satellites and you know all the. I mean, when I was running, they had something called RCE, remote control equipment, and any helpers, you know, unmanned helpers were. It was a radio signal, and it was unreliable at best. If you went through a tunnel or cut, you know, a big cut, and the mid-train helpers lost continuity with the head end for whatever reason, you know, cuts and tunnels and things like that. The helpers would stay in whatever mode they were in when they lost continuity from the head ends, which
yeah, so yeah, like if you're under throttle, they'll be constantly under throttling up and up and up and up.
Yeah,
and it won't be until the engineer figures out that it's getting pushed instead of in control.
It's like now the head end is going downhill, the rear end is shoving, but it lost continuity, so it goes over the head, over the hill. So now it's shoving downhill. And it just, it worked, but but with the DPU technology they got now, it's rock solid reliable. And what they have found is, you know, if you understand how train air brakes work, anything over about a mile, I mean, you've got an inch and a half of brake pipe, and you're going to get some leakage, you know, through that train line. But once you start getting 7,000 feet of train, you start getting enough leakage in the cars, in the connections, where you start getting brake problems on the rear of the train, because you'll get brakes sticking on it, and it gets to the point where a train's too long that the air from the head end is not really getting back to the rear of the train, and it takes so long to make a brake reduction, because everything is done from the head end. You make a brake reduction on the head end, and each car will set up in sequence from the head end all the way to the rear. They don't all go on at the same time.
Yeah, it's a Mexican way. It's like a caterpillar.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, because the control valve on each car is sensing that reduction and does its application. And so you got, say you got a 140 car train, and I've had this, and it was a huge problem with the older cars, is the head end is setting up pretty solid by the time the rear end is even getting an indication that it needs to start setting the brakes, and you get huge run-ins of slack. And vice versa, when you kick the brakes off, it does it in reverse. The head end starts releasing, and you can get the head end completely released, and the rear end is still, it's still setting up, releasing, and then you get a huge run out of slack, and that's where you're getting knuckles broken and things of that. So what DPU has done is, by putting power on the rear end of the train, the railroads have found out that you can charge the train line much quicker with compressors on both ends of the train, which makes it really good for running the train, because your brakes will release quicker and they'll set up quicker. And my understanding is that it's very efficient as far as guys working the head end. The trains handle a lot better. But now the railroads have found, okay, well, now we can just, put multiple trains together, because if that's why you're seeing power in the middle of the train, because it's helping charge that train line. So you can put a 15,000 foot train together with mid-train helpers, 7,000 feet in the middle of the train, because they're charging up the train line, and they can make these trains infinitely long, and that's what they're trying to do, and they're pushing the limits past where they need to. And Congress is trying to, actually there's several, and I couldn't name them. I've watched the videos, but they're mandating that the railroads put limits on the length of their train for public safety.
Yeah,
it's just
what was that train accident that happened? Oh, I think it was in like.
Well, hang on a second. I got a message from my wife. Hang on a second.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, let's see. Hang on a second. No, it's good.
Steve's in trouble.
Oh, no. I'm just glad I got a message from her, because usually they don't come through, and then I get in trouble because it didn't come through. No, it's about paperwork. Nothing huge. That's good. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember when it was, but basically it was up in Canada, and there was a passenger train going one way, a freight train going the other way, and it was one of those cases, a mile and a half long. Back when they were still running converters. So what was that? When did they stop using converters? 88 or something?
Mid to latter 80s. Yeah.
Okay, so it was about between 85 and 89.
Yeah, that would be good. Yeah, that's pretty safe.
Yeah. Anyway, and but like basically the freight train was meant to pull into you know, a passing siding, you know, wait for the passenger train to go through. And, you know, there was some sort of deal where there was back in the days, you know how they had the dead man's, you had the dead man's pedal?
Yeah, I do.
You know, and some of the engineers just used to put, you know, something heavy like an old brake shoe or their lunchbox or the toolbox or something just to keep it on there.
We used the flag stick.
Yeah. Yeah, anyway, so, like, regardless of what, you know, what the circumstances were for why the engineers didn't react, like they were saying, you know, like obviously the engineer had heart problems and whatnot, you know, so they don't know if he had a heart attack and if he put the toolbox on the dead man's plate or, you know, if he fell asleep at the head end or whatever. But yeah, anyway, like, the guy in the caboose, you know, obviously, you know, when they head in passes a signal, when the caboose passes a signal, he radios to the head in and go, hey, we just passed the signal, you know, just to double check. And, you know, supposedly something along the lines of, you know, he messaged the head end, got no reply, tried again, got no reply, but didn't, you know, turn on the emergency brakes at the caboose end.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, what happened was, you know, there was a head-on collision between the passenger train and the freight train. But it wasn't until, like, you know, a couple of minutes after the crash happened that the guy in the caboose finally felt the sudden stop from the train.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You know, like he obviously got charged, you know, because they were saying, well, you must have been asleep because, you know, this and that, and you didn't turn the emergency brakes on at the caboose end to stop the train. You didn't follow procedures, blah 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 blah. But yeah, like, you know, even in that instance, that, you know, that was a 1.5 mile long train, and, you know, even that was hard enough back then. And now they want to, you know, run 3, 4, 5, 6 mile long trains. What do you think's going to happen?
Well, yeah, there's a lot of things changed when the cabooses were taken off, and, you know, some for the good, some for the bad. The part I liked that they were gone, and that's the only reason, was that took the crew off the rear end of the train, where you didn't have to worry quite so much about, you know, train handling, because you didn't want to beat those guys up. You know, they didn't like that. You know, so
yeah, because the cabooses were just, it was basically a trolley with a roof over the top.
Oh yeah, I mean, everywhere in a caboose you've got a handle. You know, there's a big handle down the middle of the caboose to hold on to while you're walking down the center, and you would see posters, safety posters with guys, you know, cartoon character guys flying through the air with their hands in their pockets, and the caption was, "Don't be a pocket rocket." You know, you always had to be holding on to something, you know, and so that, you know, that was the good thing about getting rid of the cabooses, is you didn't have to worry quite so much about the safety of the guys on the rear of the train, keeping the train stretched. But the guy that there was an old conductor, John Hogan. He had a story that they were coming back to Richmond from Fresno, and it was a 55-mile-an-hour train. He's riding on the rear end. He's up in the cupola, and train goes into emergency, and, you know, he's looking ahead, and all he sees is just dust and debris and dirt. You know, and this thing is moving at 55. And
yeah, so he's just looking at, oh shit.
Exactly. And he's going, oh my God, you know, because this thing is, you know, and it's slowing down because it's an emergency, but he can just see this pile of freight cars and dust and dirt, and the caboose is slowing down, and it's slowing down, and it's slowing down, and the cars are stacking up as it's slowing down. He said they got down to a stop with one car ahead of the caboose that was still on the rail. There was 40 cars that was piled up ahead of him.
Yeah, and he was just looking. Yeah, it's kind of like a ticking time bomb. It's like you're kind of looking at, is this where I die?
Yeah, it's like you got time to think about it. It's like, oh my God, this is not going to be good.
Yeah, because what do? You either A, stay in the caboose and die, or B, attempt to jump and possibly die.
Yeah, he finally saw what was coming. You know, he'd already told the brakeman down, you know, on the bottom what was going on. He was on the floor. He was laying on the ground. You know, and John was up there looking to see what, you know, whether they were actually going to, you know, be part of it. And he ended up riding it out. But, oh, yeah, some of the old guys I worked with, some of the horror stories of train wrecks that they survived. These are old guys that, you know, survived some serious wrecks and you know, and lived to tell about it. And I loved listening to those old stories. That was fun. That was fun.
Yeah, but that's the thing, you know, like I can even, like, I myself, like, obviously I've never, you know, ridden on a train, drove a train, anything like that. You know, like worked on the railroad would be a better way to put it. But like, you know, if I was in his shoes, seeing a train pile up in front of me, I'd be weighing up my options. Like, okay, if I stay, I could survive it, but I could die. But if I jump the train, obviously I'd wait for it to get slow enough. But if I jump off, I could possibly become paraplegic or quadriplegic. You know, do I really want to risk that happening and just rather die?
You know, that's a tough call that a lot of guys have had to make. You know, do you stay on and ride it out, or do you jump off and take your chances of, you know, hitting the ground and breaking your back, breaking a leg, or having the train pile up on top of you? It all depends on how fast you're going. And I think you're always, for the most part, better off riding it out. You know, they had in 1990, I think it was 96. There was and I was gone by then. I got hurt in 93 and officially retired in 96. And there was, I'd have to look it up. Anybody can Google it. It's on YouTube. It's a head-on collision at Kismet, California. And at the time it was the BNSF. So actually it was later than 96. And there was, Kismet is a little bit north of Fresno in the Central Valley of California. And there's a long sweeping curve going into it. And Kismet was in what we called a sag. It's not level. And the middle of the siding it's like a bowl. And when you would go in there, you had to know that was, you know, was there. But anyway, long story short is there was an engineer that had several safety violations. They hadn't pulled him out of service. And he came in that siding with the train somewhat stretched, meeting another train coming the other way. He was on the main, and the train that he was meeting was going in the siding. And he let that slack hit him. And he was slowing down for the west end of the path to stop, but the slack pushed him through the red signal and into the foul of the west switch of the oncoming eastbound train, and they hit head on. Because they had a camera on the eastbound train that was going in the pass, and you could see the signal that he had. He had a red over green, which meant that he was lined through the siding. He was going to, which, you know, the westbound train had already cleared that switch. So the dispatcher had lined that eastbound train through the siding, and you could see the signal change from a red over green to a double red. And by that time, the train was probably, and they were moving, I think, the turnout was 40 miles an hour. And the other train had just hit the foul, and it was a massive head-on wreck. And the engineer that ran the signal jumped from the train. You can see it on the video. He bailed. And he actually, he survived. Everybody survived. He didn't get hurt because he bailed off. I think they were doing 15 miles an hour when he bailed off. The other three members of the crew, well, his conductor and the engineer and conductor of the train that hit, they rode it out. Of course, the one that they hit, they were going too fast. They didn't realize that the other train was going to run the signal, so they had no reason to jump off. And all three of those guys are gone. Their injuries were so bad that they had to retire. That ended their railroad career. But that was over gross negligence on the engineer that jumped from the train. Yeah, if anybody wants to see that wreck, just look on YouTube, and it's just plug in BNSF, Kismet head on, and you'll find it. But no, I went through that siding hundreds of times. So I know it very well. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Yeah. Fred Weil was saying the crash in Panhandle, Texas, the one guy that survived jumped. They were going like 40 when collided head on, and train going some 60 miles per hour. Yeah,
that's another one. And that poor gal, I'm friends with basically her best friend. And they never found her. There was not, that was such a violent head on.
Oh, it'd be like squashing an ant with your finger.
Oh yeah, no, they lied. The railroad lied that they had recovered her body, and they actually notified her family that they found her, and that was a bald-ass lie. They never found that poor gal. But yeah, that was a horrible wreck.
Yeah, well, it's like I'm just trying to think. Have you ever seen? There's a picture that went round a while years ago.
I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm looking something up, but I'm here.
Yeah, no, there's a picture that went around years ago. Basically, it was when smart cars first came out. And basically, it was this smart car. I think he cut off a truck or something.
Mm-hmm.
And when he cut off the truck, he got stuck behind another truck whilst that truck was under braking. And what happened is, because he cut off this truck behind him, the truck behind him didn't have enough space to brake. So when the truck driver put the brakes on, he ran out of road and pretty much squashed this smart car into the other truck.
Mm.
Both trucks were fine. Like they had a bit of panel damage. The trailer on the front truck had some panel damage on the trailer. But you get the car out, and it's like, okay, I see blood, skin, a shoe. Where's the body?
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, just for clarification, her name was Laura Taylor, the conductor that they never found. But yeah, I'm actually part. It's called the Panhandle, Texas Railroaders Memorial Organization, and it's dedicated to them. I'm just trying to find some more information. Let's see.
Also, for those who are watching, if any of you guys have ever painted road markings using paint pens, you understand how annoying they are.
Oh, here's a good one. Is Wilmer on right now? Let's
Not
see.
sure. I haven't seen his name in a little bit. But as I said, it doesn't mean he's not running the show in the background.
Well, I was scrolling through that Facebook page that I belong to, and I ran across something. It's called a railroader's prayer. I've heard this before, but I hadn't heard it in a while. Not to get spiritual on everybody.
Yeah, no, I know what you're talking about. Like, again, yeah, same thing. I haven't heard it in a while, but yeah, I know about it.
Yeah, it says, now that I have flagged thee, lift up my feet from the road of life and plant them safely on the deck of the train of salvation. Let me use the safety lamp of prudence, make all couplings with the link of love. Let my hand lamp be the Bible, and keep all switches closed that lead off the main line into the sidings with blind ends. Have every semaphore white along the line of hope, that I may make the run of life without stopping. Give me the 10 Commandments as a working card, and when I have finished the run on scheduled time and pulled into the terminal, may thou, superintendent of the universe, say, well done, good and faithful servant. Come into the general office and sign the payroll and reserve your check for happiness. I haven't heard that in a long time, but yeah. Okay.
Yeah, well, it's actually a really nice prayer. So
let's see. She trying to. Oh yeah, this was by. This is a poem that she wrote after Laura was killed. She says, in loving memory of Laura Gale Taylor, you took pride in your job, gone way too soon, but never forgotten. Rest in peace, my sister. And it says, life is a mountain railway with an engineer that's brave. We must make the run successful from the cradle to the grave. Watch the curves, the fills, the tunnels, never falter, never fail. Keep your hand upon the throttle and your eyes upon the rail. Blessed Savior, thou wilt guide us till we reach the blissful shore where the angels wait to join us in thy praise forevermore. You will roll up grades of trial. You will cross the bridge of strife. See that Christ is your conductor on this lighting train of life. Always mindful of obstruction. Do your duty, never fail. Keep your hands upon the throttle and your eyes upon the rail. You will often find obstructions. Look for storms and wind and rain on a fill or a curve or a trestle. They will almost ditch your train. Put your trust alone in Jesus. Never falter, never fail. Keep your hands upon the throttle and your eyes upon the rail. As you roll across the trestle, spanning Jordan's swelling tide, you behold the Union Depot into which your train will glide. There you'll meet the superintendent, God the Father, God the Son, with the heartily joyous, plaided, weary pilgrim, welcome home. Yeah, she wrote that for her.
beautiful.
Anyway, enough on that. Man, I'm not going to get emotional. Okay.
It's funny. Like,
Uh-oh, what did I do? Here we go.
it's actually quite funny because here we are talking about train wrecks. Which train wrecks, as bad as they actually are quite fascinating.
I'm here. What?
Train wrecks, like, as bad as they are quite fascinating.
Oh, yeah.
Like, You know, but at the same time, when like a lot of people don't understand when it actually does affect you personally, like obviously they're with you because obviously you know the people.
Mm-hmm.
It's a different ballgame.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, there's a reason why when people describe a really bad happening, they describe it as a train wreck. You know, because I don't think there's a whole lot worse than a train wreck. It's just incredible the destruction of a train wreck.
Yeah, and yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like, obviously, if you think about other things that happen, like say a plane crash or something like that, yeah, they're catastrophic, and you know a lot of people die. But at the end of the day, when those kind of accidents do happen, there really isn't much left.
No.
Whereas in a train wreck, it's all still there. It like it doesn't disappear. It just crumbles up into a mess of twisted metal and.
Everything. Well, in that particular wreck, they hit head on at a combined speed of 100 miles an hour. You know, one was doing 60 and one was doing 40. You know, and there wasn't a lot left. I mean, the inertia of those two trains hitting just almost mind blowing.
Didn't they write off all locomotives pretty much because they were all that badly damaged?
Oh, everything was totaled. Yeah. Oh
yeah.
Shoot. Yeah.
Actually, John 2618 says his wife gets mad when he watches air disasters. He's a pilot, but he likes to learn about them. It's kind of funny. He's a pilot, but he watches plane crashes to learn. He's probably just sitting there going, okay, so when I fly that plane, don't press that button. And don't do this, don't do that.
Well, I was never involved in any huge collisions. Anything we did was in the yard, you know, nothing more than 10 miles an hour. Except for the one that bad ordered me. You know, that was a little different. We were doing a little faster, but yeah, I mean, you know, I was fortunate, but I tell you, going down a railroad track at 70 miles an hour, it's a little spooky. You get used to it, but you know, you didn't really want to think about it because, especially when you're meeting another train and your life is in their hands, their life is in your hands. You're all doing everything that you need to do to get home at night, and you know, all it takes is somebody doing something they shouldn't be doing or not paying attention, miss a signal, and you know, and you got a train wreck, you know, but everybody's doing their job and it's safe. But you think back on it, it's like, you know, there were times when, you know, it's like, I hope they're slowing down. You know, you're going, same deal as the head on in Kismet. You're doing 40 miles an hour going into the siding to meet another train. You got a headlight on the main line that you see, and you know, you're always thinking to yourself almost every time, it's like, I hope he's stopping. You know, I hope he's slowing down, because if you had a red over flashing yellow, that meant that you were going into the siding, but you were going to stop at the other end, because obviously the dispatcher is either going to hold you there or the train you're meeting hasn't cleared, you know, the other switch yet. So that means that he's moving. So it's like, okay, I hope you're stopped. And then you would see that signal turn to red over green. That means he's clear of that switch. Dispatcher's got you lined out. You throttle up, go through the siding at 40 miles an hour. And, you know, the trains were always stopped, but that's always in the back of your mind. It's like, I hope he's got that train under control and he's going to stop. Because if you don't, you got to head on. And that just, you know, that was just part of life. And you just got used to it. I guess it's like, you know, John, like you know, you being a pilot, you know, you get used to, I guess, you know, I've never been a pilot, and I've always been fascinated by it. You know, I love watching the videos of landings and takeoffs of airliners. I find it fascinating, but that's got to be running through your mind, when you're landing. It's like, you've done it 100 or 1,000 times or whatever it is, and you've got guidelines that you use to make the landings. But what happens, it's got to run through your mind. It's like, could this be the one where I'm going to get wind shear, I'm going to get a downdraft, or I'm going to lose an engine, or something catastrophic is going to happen on a normal landing, so that's got to run through somebody's mind too. So I don't know, John, are you commercial pilot or private? I don't know, but yeah, it's got to run through your mind.
Yeah. Well, it's like over in Europe with the high-speed trains and bullet trains. They don't use signals. They use relay relay boxes and communication systems, which are built into the track. Mm-hmm. But basically, the way it works is, the bullet train runs over these communication boxes, which they're not a small box. They're like, I think they're like 10 meters. So that'll be what, like 20 feet long, And basically, what it does is, as the train runs over them, over the top of them, it communicates information to the locomotive, and on the dashboard of the cabin in the cockpit of the locomotive, an alarm goes off, and there's the signals right there, and so literally the driver can look over to the left, is like, oh, I've got a green light, I'll keep going. Oh, my next signal approaching is a red over yellow, or yellow over red, or, because obviously those trains are doing, 250, miles an hour. Oh, actually, no, not that fast. 250 kilometers an hour, which is 1.6. So I think that's like 160 mile an hour. Like at those speeds, there's no way you can visually look at a signal ahead of you and notice what's on the signal and go past it at that speed. You'll see the signal up ahead, and you're like, oh, there's a signal approaching up. Oh shit! Did you see what that signal was?
Right. Well, and to parallel that, my district ran down the Central Valley of California, which has some of the thickest fog you'll ever find. It's called Tule fog, Central Valley Tule fog, and I can honestly say, from the months of say November to March. Were fog months, and you could look out the window of the locomotive and not see the rails. You could see the handrails of the front, but you could not see the track. And it's that thick. And we would run 70 miles an hour in that stuff. And the way the signals would work is, if you were let's say you were in CTC territory and you're doing 70, and the dispatcher is going to put you into the siding, meet another train. Okay. He would set it up where my first signal I would get would be either a flashing yellow or a double yellow. They meant the same thing. And when you saw that, that meant that the signal following that would require you to be going at no more than 40 miles an hour. So he would have the signal at the siding set for a red over flashing yellow, which is a 40 mile an hour turnout. The preceding signal would be a double yellow or a flashing yellow.
Yeah, which basically means get ready to slow down to 40 miles.
Yeah, you would get a green, then a double yellow, and which means you're down to, okay, and then a red over flashing yellow, and that's 40 miles an hour. So if you're going in the fog and you're doing 70, let's say you've got a 70 mile an hour train, you're going to have about 2 or 3 seconds to get that signal as it flashes by. I mean, it just shoop, and it's gone. And you call up, man, double yellow, flashing yellow, or whatever. And then you had to get on that train. I mean, to get it, because you had maybe 1.5 miles to get that thing slowed down to 40 miles an hour. And some of them were a little bit less, you know, so you had to get right on it to get it down to 40 to get into the siding. But if you miss that signal, you know, let's say you turn your head or you're not paying attention, you miss that approach signal, you know, and the next one you're going to see at 70 miles an hour is a red over yellow. And you're going to go through a 40-mile-an-hour turnout at 70 miles an hour. And if you're meeting another train, there's no way you're going to get that train stopped, you know, in a mile and a half.
No, basically, you see that signal, it's basically straight into emergency and pray to God.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah. You hope that you're going to make it through that turnout without rolling over. Okay, let's say you do, you know, that means you're going right out the other end of that siding, you know, because there's no way you're going to get that train stopped. So, you know, we never had cab signals. It was always all business when it was foggy. You know, you could joke and, you know, the conductors and engineers, they're bull crapping all the time, you know, if they're friends and stuff. And that was a fun trip. But as soon as you got the fog, man, it got very quiet and very serious in the cab. It was like almost like the cockpit, you know, a sterile cockpit. It's like, man, you were looking out the window. You know, at that point, the conductor's got his face almost pressed against the front window on his side. You know, looking for signals, looking for whistle boards, mile boards. You know, but you didn't want to miss a signal, and. You know, so it was very tense. It was a long day going through the fog at 70. I don't miss that stuff at all. Not at all.
Oh, I can imagine. And like even then, like you think about Donna's Pass and that with the snow. I mean, imagine the snow blizzards.
Oh yeah.
You know, it'd be similar thing.
Same thing, yeah. Because you're getting that whiteout condition, and a lot of times you had the, you know, depending on which way the wind is blowing, you've got snow built up on the signals, you know, which makes them harder to see.
Yeah.
So, but
not to mention the other effect of, you know, like if you're going downhill and it's, you know, a blizzard and it's got icy track and you see a double red. You know, you try and put you can't just put the emergency on willy-nilly because, you know, straight away you lock up those wheels. You're not going to stop at what the normal length of an emergency stop is. You're going to be double or tripling that.
Yeah, so wet wheels and wet brakes, that also increased your stopping distance too. So so all those.
Yeah, so like imagine how those guys were. You know, they'd be bloody like go, oh crap, double red. Okay, let's see how close we can get it to. You know, let's see how much of the brakes we can apply before we start getting slippage. You know,
right.
You know, and obviously they'd be putting the sanders on to get sander on the track to get extra traction, just to slow the train down. And just thinking about it,
Well, I tell you, the worst trains, the hardest trains to stop for me that I found were the long double stacks. They're heavy. First of all, I mean they would keep them a lot of times with the tons per operative brake would allow them a 70-mile-an-hour speed limit, but they were on the verge of being, you know, limited to 55 because of weight. But okay, if you think about a double stack, you know, in the articulated well cars, you basically, you know, let's say a normal piggyback car, an 89-foot piggyback car with 2 containers on it, a conventional 2-container piggyback car, you've got one set of brakes for each container. You know, you've got 2 trucks on the car, 2 containers. While the articulated well cars cut that in half. You've got 2 containers on 1 truck.
And then the articulates, it's even less again.
So you've got less brake shoes for the weight. And those trains were difficult to stop, in a hurry. It took a while. And I tell you what, if you had one in the fog and you got an approach signal, and it was air brakes and dynamic immediately. It's like you jumped on both of them, get that thing slowed down to 40 miles an hour in a mile and a half, because they didn't want to do it. And you can grab the train brakes right away. You don't want to do a big set. You got to do a minimum reduction, which is 6 to 8 pound of brake reduction to get the. But the dynamics, you can't put the dynamics on right away. You've got to throttle down, slowly. You can't just slap the throttle off and pull the dynamics out, because you'll blow out every traction motor on the consist. So you got to shut the power down one notch at a time,
and slowly load it up. Yeah.
And then it's got to sit in idle for 10 seconds before you can kick on the dynamics, and you have to wait 10 seconds. So you've got probably 30 seconds before you can get any dynamics on the head end, without damaging the traction motors. Well, at 70 miles an hour, 30 seconds, you're half a mile down the road before you can even start use the dynamics. And sometimes there's only, let's say, a mile and a quarter to get that train slowed down. So now you've got, three quarters of a mile or something, you'll be able to use your dynamics. So that's why you grab the train air first, get a good set on the train, and then start working that dynamics and try to get that puppy slowed down to 40.
Yeah.
I hated those double stacks, dude. They were horrible.
Well, David BNSF is just asking, did the articulate well cars have brakes on every truck or just the end trucks?
Every truck.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, each one, but if you got a 5, a 5-packer, we called them, so that's 10 containers.
Yeah. The 5
on that.
5 well articulates.
And then you got six, trucks on it, because it's articulated. 6 trucks and 10 well cars. Do the math. That's.
Yeah. Well, let's see. So 5. That's 10. Yeah. So you're short on 4 bogies. You're short 4 sets of brakes.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So if you've got a regular piggyback car, 5 piggyback cars holding those 10 containers, you've got, 10
sets of brakes.
You got 1 set of brake for each container. And some of those containers are pretty heavy.
Oh yeah.
So those, they were difficult to slow down. I didn't like the double stacks. I personally didn't like them. I've got.
Actually, in saying that, the one thing I always found funny, and the amount of times I used to have, when I started exhibiting, I used to run my Challenger with well cars behind it. And every now and then I get a couple of people going, "You can't do that. That's not prototypical." So what do I do? No. What I do? I go on YouTube. Back in 1991, when 3985 was.
No. Yep.
Yep. You know the video I'm talking about?
I do. Yeah.
Yeah. There was. Well, I can't remember what the reason was. There was a shortage of locomotives at the end of the train was on, and there was too many in the shop or something, and there wasn't enough workers, and all they had was the 3985.
Yeah, and there, I think that's what it was.
And there you see 3985 hauling this double container well car train at 65, 70 mile an hour, doing the job of what usually 3 diesel units do it. And
that's actually.
But to think about it, that's doing it on just purely air brakes, no dynamics, because there is no dynamics on a steam loco. Can you imagine how stretchy it would have been to slow that sucker down?
Yeah. Yeah, that would be a little, yeah. I would think that'd be difficult. Oh my God.
Actually, look at his friend for a second, Steve.
Yeah, I see a mess.
This will probably bring back memories for you. Share.
Yeah. I know it will.
Does that bring back the days of work?
Yeah, I've seen that. That's pretty cool. Yeah, I do like that.
Because that's the kind of controls you would have been used to, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, actually, there's some guys that have those on their 1.5" scale stuff when they're running electric. A lot of them are battery operated. So yeah, they've got some controllers that look like that. So yeah, it's kind of cool.
Yeah. Well, that runs on DCC.
Pretty cool. Not bad.
Yeah. And actually, there's the one thing that's annoying is I've seen this video on YouTube, and do you think I could find it? There's a guy. He bought himself the front cab off I think it was an old F7 unit. Right?
I've seen that, yeah. And he does his model railroad in front.
Yeah, he's got a camera in an F7 that's linked to it wirelessly, and the controllers are all linked to it.
Yeah, that guy's got way too much money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was probably the test dummy for the Pro Throttle.
Yeah. Oh, it's funny too. You've been gone from the railroad for years when you see stuff on YouTube, and there was one. I think it was last week. This guy shot a video. He's going down the freeway. He passes a truck, a flatbed carrying the cab of a Santa Fe SD45, and which who knows? I don't know where it was going or anything, but I love when I see old stuff like that. I go back to my time books, because I was pretty meticulous about keeping records. All the powers, I kept all my old time books and whatnot. And I love to go back and find videos or pictures of trains that I was on or used. And I looked at that and I said, yep, I found all the times that I actually had that locomotive on as a lead. And I'm looking at it now, man, and it's just a hulky cab running down the freeway.
Yeah.
The same one.
You look at it and you go, I remember back when I was driving that, and now it's just a wreck.
Yeah. There's one on a playground. They set it up, and I don't know where it is. I couldn't tell you, but I did see a picture of it, and it's a kid's playground. And it's a cab of an SD45, the Santa Fe, and numbers are still on it. Number boards are still on it, and it's like, shoot, yep, had that one too. I love finding that stuff. I mean, I find all kinds of stuff online of trains that I was running.
Yeah, well, it's good. It's good.
Yeah, that's what's actually neat about the internet. I mean, this one. Let me see this picture right here. This was one. Let's see. I don't know if you can see that. Probably.
Oh yeah.
Okay. That was in 91. That's the east tunnel portal of tunnel number 3 in Franklin Canyon. I'm sorry, Glen Fraser Canyon. And I went back, checked, I mean, all the engine numbers matched. Like, shoot, I remember that train because that was a 189 train, which was a very hot train. But the 189 never had double stacks. And if you look on this, I don't know if you can see, but
I can kind of see it's a bit blurry, but yeah, they do look double stacks.
It's got double stacks on the head end. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 5-packer of double stacks. And the train ahead of us, he had, well, not ahead of us, but they had those cars bad ordered and set out on a siding in the Delta because they had the sticking brake or something. But those were hot cars. And
what do you mean by hot?
Huh?
What do you mean by hot cars?
Oh, they very important, high priority. They needed to get in there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, and they were sitting out in the middle of nowhere, and a hot 189 train. I mean, that's mail. Chicago to Richmond. We stopped to pick those up, and that's why I remember that trip. And Eric caught that. I think it was Eric Cruz that caught that picture. I'd have to. No, wait a minute. Or it was Anthony Miranda. Never mind. He caught that, and he's actually caught several. He was a kid that was out taking pictures back then, and a lot of them were showing up on the internet. But no, that's a really. I mean, I've got several of them trains out here that I was on. But that's kind of fun to do. Find stuff on the internet that, like, yeah, I actually did that. Now I play with them. What I find really weird now is I used to be the guy sitting up in the cab, looking at the guys with the cameras down on the ground, going, "Oh God, another rail fan, another rail fan, another rail fan." Well, roles have reversed. Guess what I do now? I go down. I'm the guy with the camera.
Yeah, but the only difference is any engineers you worked with, they see you and they're like, "Hey, look at Steve."
They don't talk to me anymore. He's just a foamer. Yeah, they all knew. Well, what I found after, you would be surprised how many railroaders are rail fans. I never considered myself a rail fan or a foamer, definitely not. I've always been a rail enthusiast. I've always liked trains, that's why I went to work for them. And come to find out, a lot of these guys were closet railroader, rail fans. You could not admit to any self-respecting person working for the railroad that you enjoyed your job. You just couldn't do it. You didn't fit in. You had to hate it. You had to piss and moan and complain and gripe, but I couldn't believe they were paying me for something that I loved doing. I enjoyed it. The hours were not good, but I loved it.
Yeah, well, that's like with me. That's like with me and cars. Like I enjoy working on cars and having project cars. I enjoy model railroading, but unfortunately, I can't do both hobbies. So I've gone, bugger it. I'll become a mechanic, work on the cars, and fix them for other people. And I'll get a kick out of that. Knowing that, if I see a car down the road that I know I'll fix, I'll look at it and go, I kept that car on the road. That's why that thing's still kicking around, even though it's an old hunk of crap.
Well, railroading is something that it gets in your blood. I mean, you either like it or you hate it. There were guys that would hire on, and man, they worked for a couple of months and quit because, how can you guys do this? The hours suck. The environment working sucks. The money's good, but why would you guys want to do this? And they quit. So some people either like it or you don't. It's railroading was a lifestyle, and you had to enjoy it or bite the bullets. So these guys that were working for the railroad, and it's like, and the biggest belly achers you ever heard were the old guys that have been there for 30 and 40 years. You know, it's like, if it was that bad, why are you still here? Because it was a good job. It was, if you had the seniority and you could, hold the position you wanted, it wasn't bad.
Well,
if you're working midnight all the time, it's not so good.
Well, it's like a guy I know. I worked with him for a little bit in the wrecking yard, but before that, he used to work for a drilling company. Where the way this company worked was, all the mining companies would call his boss and be like, okay, can you drive out to the middle of nowhere, dig a doing conversions again. Yeah, can you drill a 4 mile deep hole and tell us if it'll make us money? So they just do, they drill like 12 or 14 inch diameter holes, dig them 4 miles into the ground, just to see, just to get core samples to see, if a mine was to open up in that area, is it going to be a lot of ore collected or is it going to be bugger all? You know what I mean?
Right.
And anyway, like obviously, because of the work it is, it's basically, you work for 3 weeks and then you get 2 weeks off, and it's basically a round the clock job. Like, you get your breakfast, your lunch, your dinner breaks, but the only time you really stop working is when you get your 10 hours. You only clocked off for 10 hours each day just to, do what you need to do, go to sleep, wake up, get ready for the morning to, start your shift, then have breakfast, and then keep going with your shift.
Well, yeah, and a lot of jobs are like that. They're not a job; it's a lifestyle. Firefighter is the same way. My dad was a firefighter for 25 years, and again, that's a lifestyle. And granted, these guys are first responders and they're heroes, and they do what they need to do. They risk their lives, and that's that's fantastic. But again, it's a lifestyle. You're going to either like it or you're not, because their schedules are such that they're not home a lot. You're 24 on, 24 off. They, half their life is spent, at a firehouse.
Yeah.
So that you're living 2 lives.
Oh yeah. Well,
life there, life at home.
Yeah. Well, that's like my sister-in-law. She's a firefighter, and like here in Australia, I don't know if it's similar to what in the States, but basically it's each week you do a 4-day shift, 2-day shifts, 2 night shifts, and then you get 3 days off.
Well, here I think Joe G could probably correct me, but my dad, they were 24 on, and then 24 off, 24 on, and then you get 48 off, and they cycle that. So they would spend a whole day gone. He'd be gone for 24 hours. I think sometimes it's longer. I think each department does different shifts. But yeah, I mean, you're living there. I mean, and some people are going to like that, some aren't. Even if they like the firefighting, are they going to want to live that lifestyle of being away from family all the time? So that's something you have to weigh. Do you like the job or not like the job? Because a lot of things are a lifestyle. I was gone all the time. I mean, I was home for 8 to 10 hours at a time, maybe 12 if I was lucky, and then I was gone for 36 to 40 hours. Sometimes even more, because it seems like I would spend more time at my away from home terminal at the motel than I did actually, at home. I might be home for 8 or 10 hours. But when I get down to to Fresno, they put me in the motel, and I'm there for 24 hours. And that sucks.
Oh yeah, exactly.
You end up spending more time at home. And
yeah.
The good
and people wonder why there's so many divorces in that regard with those kind of jobs.
Oh, it was epidemic. Very few railroaders were married. Happily married or married for any length of time, because again, it just didn't let you did not have a life. As for a railroader, it was you could count on any important date being gone. Birthdays, anniversaries, holidays, whatever. You can almost bet that you weren't going to be there, or it was a roll of the dice. I mean, you know, I missed so many birthdays and things like that. You know, and it was more difficult back, you know, then because we had pagers. So you had to be close to a telephone to get a call. And you would, you know, I got a 2-hour call, so I couldn't be any further than 2 hours away from my home terminal, you know, if I was on call, which made it difficult to do anything, you know. You know, the pager goes off and it's like, okay, call the dispatch. Yeah, you're on duty, you know, yada, yada, yada. And you're gone. And, you know, so one day you're working at 3 in the afternoon. The next day you're working at 3 in the morning. And you would, you know, so many times you would call in to the crew dispatcher saying, oh, you know, well, let's say you get up, you know, at, you know, in the morning, call the dispatcher and they say, oh yeah, you don't stand to get out until tomorrow morning, maybe tomorrow afternoon. Okay, cool. You stay up all day, you do yard work, you swim in the pool, you have a good time with the family, and you get ready. Oh man, you go to bed. You lay down, go to bed at 10 o'clock. Phone rings at midnight, you know, or 11. It's the, you know, the crew desk going, oh, you're on call for 928 on duty at 1 in the morning. It's like, wait a minute, you know? So the lineups were never good. So you stay up all day thinking you're not going to work until the next morning. So you're up all day, don't get any sleep. You get a call that you're on duty for, you know, a train that's going to be 12 hours. Okay. So you end up being, you know, awake for 36 hours, 24, 30. I think the longest I was ever awake was 47 hours. You know, and it's just like, I learned that you don't die from lack of sleep, but boy, you sure feel like it. I mean, I've been so tired, I was nauseous and sick.
Actually, it's been proven. You can actually, like, you need to sleep every 3 days, like water, because otherwise your brain just mentally can't process everything that's happened in the hours you were awake, and it just gets overloaded.
Well, honestly, I got good at sleeping with one ear and one eye. You're kind of in a half sleep, but you're aware of what's going on, because that environment back there, sleeping on duty was taboo. You just didn't do it. You know, you could be sitting in a siding for 3 hours, but you know, they'd fire you for sleeping. Now they encourage you to do that. That, you know, if as long as one person is awake, the other person can sleep, and they're finding out productivity is improving and safety is improving. But yeah, you know, you would sit there with, you know, listening to the radio, the chatter, knowing what's going on, and trying to catch a cat nap at the same time. And if you had a really good dispatcher that liked you, he would tell you, I'm putting you in at Merced. You're going to be there for probably 45 minutes or an hour or half an hour. He would tell you, and he said, I'll give you a call when that train's by, yada yada. And what he's telling you is, you know, you're going to be there for a while. Don't worry about it. You know, I'll wake you up. You know, and that's what, you know, a good dispatcher would do. And you go in the siding and, you know, you catch a cat nap, and it helped a lot, because I tell you, 3 and 4 in the morning when you've been up for 24 hours, that's a hard time to stay awake.
Oh yeah. Well, that's one reason I never became to work for the railroads, because, like, you know, it's a little different now, because of the medication I'm on. But like, I would wake up in the morning, get in the car to go to work. You know, I've had plenty of sleep, but I could very easily fall asleep behind the wheel.
Oh, I've done it. Well, honest to God, this is the truth. I have driven home from work so tired I don't remember driving home. There was one. There was a toll bridge in the Bay Area going back to where I used to live. That you stopped, you went over the bridge, you stopped, and you paid your 40 cents, and you go home. And I got home. I remember pulling in the driveway, turning off the car, and going, I don't remember driving home. I mean, it was like I was drunk. I swear to God, I don't even remember paying the toll on the bridge. I apparently drove home in my sleep because I, honest to God, don't remember driving home. That scared the crap out of me.
Yeah, that falls under the whole so the part of your brain where you form habits, you know, where everything's automatic. So, you know, for example, you know, when you walk, you don't have to think about walking, you know what I mean?
Right.
So if you're driving, you know, the same route every day, you know, you're going to and from home on the same roads, doing the exact same thing every day, that part of your brain actually clicks onto it and actually makes it automatic. So what it tends to happen is, in a sense, you know, your brain doesn't have to do as much thinking to actually do what you're doing if it's the same thing you're doing every day. So in times where you are extremely tired, you know, your brain can go, okay, well, I don't need to process too much because this is, you know, the habit to do, and you just do it. You know, because there's been plenty of times, you know, I do the same thing. I'll get home and I go, okay, I know I drove home from work. I remember driving, but I don't remember driving.
Yeah.
You know, like I'll be sitting in the car and go, like I'll look at myself and go, okay, I'm home. I know I drove home. I'm not tired. What is going on?
Yeah, that was what I was dealing with. You know, so I laid off for about 4 days after that. It's like I need to break. But I've done the same. Well, I've fallen asleep, you know, on a train. As hard as I would try to, you know, stay awake, I nodded off a couple times, and then that's not good. You know, an old engineer once told me, he said, if you know, always keep a couple of old cigars in your grip. And I said, why? He said, well, I tell you what, when you're really tired, light it up and just hold it in your mouth. Just, you know, hold it in your mouth. And it's like, well, what good is that going to do? He said, well, I'll tell you what, if you start nodding off, your head's going to go down and that cigar is going to fall out of your mouth. He said, where's it going to land? He said, that'll wake you up. Get a hot cigar landed in your lap.
Oh yeah, that's actually really smart.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I did that a couple times actually. Some guys would just open the window and stick their head out the window and that. So one guy actually said, I stick my finger in the window and close it so it hurts enough that it keeps me awake. Like, nah, okay, I'm not gonna do that. Oh man, you know, Shannon, I'm gonna have to probably cut this close. I got some stuff I got to do. Unfortunately,
Let me have a...
I'd love to stay out here for a couple
We've been on for 2 hours.
Huh?
We've been on for 2 hours.
I know, yeah, and that's about an hour more than I was planning on.
Yeah. But that went quite quick, didn't it? And all we were doing was just chin-wagging about train accidents and planes and...
Yeah. I'll have to go back to watch the replay.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's funny because this whole time whilst we were chatting, here I am looking at my layout, and I'm like, I've forgotten how hard it is to do the finer details on a layout. When you're looking at it and you go, okay, where do I want to put that tree? Where do I want to put that car? Where do I want to put this? Where do I want to put that? Like, I'm just looking around and I'm like, damn it, where can I put it? Because I've probably got another... Probably about another 30 cars I can stick to the layout, but obviously I'm not going to need all 30 cars. But I'm just looking around and go, okay, that's populated, that's populated. You know, I need to populate. Like, just looking around, it's like, where do I put it?
Oh, you'll find a place.
Yeah. Like, it was a lot easier for me to do the junkyard than it is to put cars on the road. Like, I've got a couple of cop cars on the road, got a couple of taxis, a couple of Chevys, wagons. I've got a tow truck. Still got a few trees to put down. Actually, I've got a few flatbeds I need to load up. Maybe I'll use them on the flatbeds. That's an idea.
There you go. All righty, Shannon. I am going to say goodbye.
Oh, I'll probably do the same. It's like 2 in the morning here.
Yeah. Well, and thank you everybody for joining us on this crazy train.
Yeah, I don't even know how many people have been watching us. Like, I know there's 9 on there currently, but I don't know how many people have come and gone and whatnot.
Well, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks again, everyone. Hope you enjoyed me and Steve just chin-wagging about bullcrap.
That's the fun part about beams. That's fun. Yeah, It's like a conference call.
Yeah. You know, and I've got a little bit done. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to have to buy more people because I've got to populate this station. That's going to be fun.
I got nothing done.
Yeah.
Nothing. All righty.
Yeah. Oh, actually, in saying that, I know Ally's got the N-scale travelling boxcar ready for dispatch, so I just got to send her over your stuff so we can box it up and send it to you.
Sweet.
So, at the moment, as I said, the last couple of things I sent to the States, it's taking between 4 to 5 weeks.
You better get it out there.
Yeah. But, no, but, like, because restrictions are lifting, it might be a little bit quicker. Like, I was meant to be getting, like I got a package that's interstate on my way here, you know, and, recently those kind of packages took maybe a week to get to me from interstate. But this one was posted on Tuesday, and by the looks of it, it might actually arrive to me by tomorrow.
Cool.
So you never know. So anyway, so expect it. So in saying that, let's say between 2 to 5 weeks.
Okay.
So let's see, that'll be. So 2 weeks will be start of July, and 5 will be like end of July. So somewhere in July.
Or the end of August, which is about when the contest is going to be over, right?
Now, contest finishes at the start of August.
Start of August, right? Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, take care, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks for joining us on this random beans. And we'll talk to you all again later.
Okay, take care. I'm gonna sign off. All righty, thank you.
See ya.